camera looks like it's way down today.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome to Live with Leslie. I'm Jeff Harrison.
I'm Leslie Spoor.
And yeah, what goes on before you go live? We can't tell you because you would laugh as hard as we would.
Yeah, we're crazy.
we have to sign disclaimers that we can't talk about this. But here's my phone number. If you want to call me later, I'll tell you. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you won't.
So Leslie, what's been going on? We've been pretty busy.
We have been very busy, and actually we've been writing proposals all week. So this is a perfect topic today because we've actually been really writing proposals.
So you have some tips on how to get your proposals to be won, to be selected, right?
Right.
I mean, the winning proposal. We're just talking about that off air. It's like, what appeals to you? Is it the loss of something or winning of something? You've been doing some interesting things on that. Maybe that's a whole nother topic on how to select headlines for because you write a newsletter every week, right?
Every week, yeah.
And I suspect that what you're learning or what you're doing here bleeds over into your newsletters.
Yeah, I usually take one of these tips or two of these tips and expand them into a newsletter so that because we can only do so much information while we're right here, and then that way, if you sign up for our newsletter, you're going to get even more in-depth information.
We could actually do a Live with Leslie marathon. Like we go 24 hours, we get sponsors, people on the phones, and do the whole thing. It was very successful with Jerry Lewis. He raised a lot of money. We would do it for Concierge Business Solutions.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, I guess I'm just in a joking mood today. Well, the reason is because I'm this far away from going away for about a month, where it's much cooler and there's beach and there's water. I know we have a beach here in the desert, but water, so I'm a little giddy.
But that doesn't mean that our Facebook Live won't be there because we pre-recorded all of September, so you'll still see it every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific. That's
right. It'll still be shown live.
Right.
And so if you tune in, which we want you to, live, and you have questions, we will be available. So if you have questions, we'll be answering them live. It's kind of a neat way, Liz. We've done it both ways where it's like, hey, you're the star, you're answering the questions. But it's hard to do when you're actually on camera. Right. So you can monitor it and then say, gosh, there's, John asks a question, you can respond to him right there. So sometimes the engagement is much better.
I love it when they ask questions.
Yeah. So anyway, if you have questions, make sure to put them in the comments. At this point, Amy's manning the board. She's on top of that. But let's get into today's topic.
Okay, so we're going to talk about 6 tips for writing a proposal that will actually work for you. Okay, and there's all kinds of different levels of proposals. Sometimes if you have a really simple thing, you may just send an email quote to somebody and that will suffice as a proposal. And other times you're going to do a little bit more formal, and then in a lot of cases you're doing a very formal proposal. And sometimes the sales cycles are really long for proposals, especially if you're trying to get if you're a concierge company watching this, trying to get a corporate account, the sales cycle can be very long, and so you have to have more details and more information. So we're going to talk about the most formal kind of proposal today because it's easier to back down from it than this is the hardest one.
Okay.
Okay.
So you got 6.
I have 6, right.
Always starting from the top of the.
No, we always start at the bottom.
Right, for your 6 and back to number 1.
Right.
So.
Right.
But does that mean this is the least of the 6 that's important? It'd be in no particular order.
All of these are just kind of the same importance.
Okay.
But I always think of one thing is kind of like really important, so I always put it at the top. But
it's my favorite part, the drum roll thing.
The drum roll. He likes to do the drum roll.
Cool.
Okay, so the number 6 thing about doing a proposal is to use the correct format, and that means learning how to pick which type of proposal to give, or if the client has specified a proposal, how they want it. Different industries sometimes get what they call an RFP, which is a request for proposal, and typically if they want a specific format, it's going to be defined within that RFP. Okay, so and some industries just get somebody that calls them up and says, hey, quote me this, right? Yeah. We're in the middle of doing a quote for a really big remodeling project, and there are I think there's like 7 different projects under the umbrella of this one project.
Wow. So
the proposal is really intense, and the details and questions are, we've gone back and forth with the client several times trying to refine the scope of work so that we can propose properly. So it's important to understand the correct format so that and if you're ever unsure about the correct format, it's always better to err on the side of formality.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
For example, yesterday I did a proposal for a client, and actually this could have been an email proposal. It's a pretty small project. Really, it's less than $3,000, a really small project. But there was a lot of open-ended issues with it. Or the client hadn't made up his mind on what he wanted exactly. So, and he was going to furnish some of the material and not some of the material, and he wasn't sure of the dimensions. So it was better to go ahead and do a full-blown proposal on this and specify the things I'm going to tell you that you need, so that we were all covered.
So protect yourself first.
Really, it's really about answering what the client wants, being able to provide the services or the products that somebody wants, and protecting your company from liability at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So you have to put stuff in there to protect you.
So being sure which format to use. Use the correct format, but err on the side of formality. Okay,
correct.
Gotcha.
Okay, number 5 is to create a template for your proposal. So the first time you do it, and actually I think I have a template for proposals on the Concierge Business Solutions website, available under the documentation.
Okay.
If I don't and somebody wants one, I'll put one out there. But create a template for your proposals so that the next time you do one, it's easier and you don't forget anything.
Now, would you, with that fact, that sounds to me like there were 3 different levels of it. One is very formal. The next one is, let's call it
Semi-formal.
Semi-formal, and then there was an email. Casual.
Right.
Would you create templates for each one?
No. I would just do the most complicated one, and then you can take away from it.
Gotcha.
Rather than having to remember what to add.
Gotcha.
So if you take and make the most formal template, then it's easy to pull out things, and it's important to have that stuff in front of you so that you remember that you need to address those categories. Right?
You bet.
So that helps you if you create a template, and we're going to talk about some of the template areas. For example, if it's a big proposal, I like to write a case for action. Why did the client ask me to do this work? Like, we built a dog park one time, and they wanted to enhance the living experience in their community by adding an amenity for the homeowners to enjoy.
Oh, neat.
Right? That's a case for action.
All right.
So you want to say why they've asked you to do that. What are they trying to do that they want you to help them?
Okay.
Right? That's a case for action.
All right. So could you say case for action is also what's the objective for this? I mean, is that interchangeable? Okay.
Yes. But it's from what the client wants.
Gotcha.
Right?
Case for action.
Correct. And then these are just a few of them. You have to have the scope of work.
Okay.
Okay. You have to have schedule and proposed cost, right? So there's a lot of other things. Assumptions are really, really important. And assumptions in a proposal are, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that. Okay, so you define very clearly. For example, if we're doing a painting project for somebody, and we have to move all the furniture, we say we'll take down the electronics or unhook them, but we are not responsible to A, reinstall them, and B, that they function after they're reinstalled. Okay, because I have to protect myself, because you can never, there's so many kinds of electronics, there's so much different kinds of technology, and people have things configured in different ways. I'm not going to be responsible for it. So we can let them remove the electronics and be out of it, or we'll take them out, but you have to put them back, and if they work or not, that's not my fault.
So this is under the assumptions.
Under the assumptions.
Okay. All right.
Another kind of assumption might be that I was helping somebody write a proposal for providing site concierge services, and we were saying that we would provide one person from 8 o'clock to 4:30, and there'd be this many breaks, and that's what we would do, and the client would provide a place for a break room, telephone and internet, restroom facilities, so we were being very specific about the work environment for the person that we were going to provide.
So again, those are assumptions. Obviously, that makes sense,
right?
Hey, if we're going to put somebody in there, you got to be able to.
Right.
Your employee or your staff member has to be able to go to the bathroom, use the phone, have the internet. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. So, and even it could even get as detailed as, we will not allow any personal phone calls. We'll use our phone for this and that, and we'll use yours for something else. I mean, assumptions are the things that you have to think about below the high level, into the details of the day-to-day, what you're going to do. Another one that I'll write in there sometimes is that if it's a big project and there's lots of tasks, we'll say we'll work them in any sequence that we deem appropriate, as long as it's adheres to the schedule and the budget and it's expeditious, we get to make the decision on how we do the work.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So there's all kinds of different kinds of assumptions, and it really depends on the project and your kind of business and what you're trying to propose. And that's where somebody can help you a lot of times, because most people can't think detailed enough. You know, I used to write proposals for the government, so multi-million-dollar proposals to the government. So I'm very conscious of liability mitigation and making sure that the deliverables and the scope and everything are completely defined.
Well, you know, Leslie, that is so true. Sometimes we are so close into our work that we do so many things unconsciously that until we have to write them down, we really don't think of them.
Right.
Just a real quick sidebar on that, and it was really more of a policies and procedure for us. We were hiring a new person to do a job, and so I started, and I think it was probably because of what we've talked about, is I started writing down every step that we do. There are like 109 steps.
And you didn't realize.
I'm like, holy cow, because you just do these things naturally. But then if you were to take away, step 75, from there on, it may not work.
Right.
So it is nice to get another person involved to help you say, wait a second, is this really how it goes? What about all these steps in between there? Oh, geez, you just take them for granted, right?
Well, even my vendors who send me quotes, they'll send me one page of a paragraph, and I'll call them and say, well, is this included? Is this included? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Because I'm thinking always from how do I protect all of us from liability and give something to the client that they really understand why we're bidding it, where we're bidding it, because this is exactly what we're doing. So vendors are not very good at writing proposals.
Well, then on the other
I shouldn't
side,
say vendors. I shouldn't have made a sweeping statement, but some of them are not. Yeah.
Well, then on the other side, we as, let's say, the homeowners, sometimes we also probably think, wait a second, the assumption is you moved all my furniture and now you're not going to put it back?
Right.
Right? We think that.
Right. So you have to say, I'm going to move it. I'm going to put it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I love that. Great point. Great point.
And there's a lot. I have a list of things that need to be included. Those aren't all of them, but
and you're going to get this. You can get this. It's a downloadable
well, they're
document.
not even all on here. I'm just saying this is as samples. Like there's
holding out on us.
I am holding on a little bit, but there's a bunch of stuff here. 4 is, and this one is tricky. This is a hard one for people to learn how to do. You have to write from the client perspective, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote down an example. So rather than telling the client, you need to use us because we're the best at what we do, because we know you're the best at what you do, right? How do you feel about this statement instead? Many of our customers have found our delivery dependability makes commitments to their clients safe and reliable.
Wow, that sounds much different.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's from the client's perspective, because the client cares about on-time delivery, safe, reliable, right?
Perfect.
So I and I still said we're the best, but I took it and turned it from their perspective. And that's actually the crux of customer service anyway, right? Is that you always think and operate from what the client perceives. Yeah. So when you're writing a proposal, you have to write it from how they're going to perceive it about you.
And that seems to resonate. I mean, if I'm the client and those are the things that we've talked about, those are my hot buttons. When you write that resonates with me. It's like, that gets my attention. Boy, she was really listening. That makes sense.
Exactly.
And it almost sounds like a testimonial, in fact.
Exactly.
I love that.
We do this with realtors is my favorite one because it's so effective. And I talk about working with realtors quite often because I love them and they are very generous to us as far as bringing clients in. But what we found that works with a realtor, for example, instead of telling them that we can make their life easier, is to say that if they've ever experienced separation anxiety when their escrow is complete and the homeowner is changing from a buyer to a homeowner at that point, and they get real attached during escrow and don't want to let go, but the realtor needs to move on to their next listing. We say we can ease that transition. You will extend your customer service beyond the close of escrow so that they will want to come back to you and use you later. Totally, they love that.
Yeah, you almost become a follow-up system.
Right.
Yeah.
So you really want to look at what pain are you solving for them and how are they going to read this? They're going to read it. So it shouldn't say any eyes at all. No eyes. It all has to be from their side.
All the way through.
Right.
Okay.
So, and it's super tricky to do this. I can't tell you how many proposals people send me to help them wordsmith, and that's the number one problem. The information is correct, but it's how it's stated is is better said from the other side.
You could have a whole class on that.
I could do a whole class on that. Yeah, that's a huge thing.
Monday night, 7 p.m., $199 a month. But you have to call now or it may not happen.
Exactly. Okay, number
so that's
3.
Number 4?
That was number 4.
All right.
Yeah. Any questions about number 4?
No, I think you nailed it.
Yeah, that was important.
Yeah. I feel safe and secure now.
Number 3 is watch your spelling and grammar. It seems like so simple, but you would not believe how many emails, how many proposals, applications for employment that I see that have spelling and grammatical errors. I will immediately discount the person. Immediately. Why? Because if you don't have enough pride in the quality of what you do to make sure that your computer does a spell check, then I don't necessarily want to work with you. Yeah. Right? And other people feel the same way. That's a hot button for a lot of people. I know it's one of my hot buttons, but it's a hot button for a lot of people. So make sure that you spell correctly and that you watch your grammar. When you do a fragmented sentence, the system will pop up and underline it with red and tell you it's a fragmented sentence, and then you can try to reword it. Sometimes fragments are okay, just depends on what you're doing, but keep an eye on that. Really critical, because it's your first impression. When you hand a proposal to somebody, you're not there in person, right? Almost always you email it or drop it off. Right. So if you do, then the only thing they have in front of them is what they're looking at. And if it's full of spelling errors, okay, then you got a problem.
Crippling.
Yeah.
It really is.
Watch your yours and yours. Those are big problems. Lose and loose are big problems. I can't tell you how many people spell lose, L-O-O-S-E.
Whoops.
It's L-O-S-E.
What are the losing
So, there's certain things that trip people up a lot. Y-O-U-R-E and Y-O-U-R is one that trips people up a lot. So, be conscious of those. Look for where you have, where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and then try to be conscious of your weaknesses so you can fix them.
Yeah. If I could throw out a little online tool, it's free, that's helped me.
Oh, okay.
It's called Grammarly.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, so it will help me with sentence structure as well as spelling. So and the cool thing about it is it goes across all my applications, whether I'm using
Excel,
it doesn't matter.
Word,
it doesn't
PowerPoint.
matter. It just comes up there and it'll help me correct that. And it's been a lifesaver, because I'll get to typing so quickly and I'll go back and I'll read it, and sometimes it's like that old example where you have the in there and your eyes don't really catch it.
I've done that lots of times.
Right? But this does catch it, or you put a comma where it shouldn't be, or vice versa. It is it's called Grammarly.
That gets worse as you get older, just so you know.
I'm not getting any older. That's it.
I type so fast that sometimes I think there's a word there, it's not there. It's like, oh, that wasn't right.
Why didn't it show up a second ago? Okay.
Okay. So grammar and spelling, super important, especially in a proposal, but your emails as well. Okay. Number 2 is know your audience. Okay. And that means you need to do a little bit of research about the person or company that you're proposing to. That isn't always necessary, but in some cases you are proposing to an organization. Again, going back to a corporate concierge, you need to understand the company, their mission and vision, their corporate culture, what's important to them. I am working with somebody who's proposing services to a hospital right now, and they're a very morality-based organization. And they're trying to improve the working conditions. There's a state, or what I call it, case for action. They're trying to improve the working conditions, and also putting in these kinds of services help with employee retention and morale, right? So doing some research about who you're going to propose to, which is super easy these days, allows you to tailor the proposal and your sentence structure so that you speak in a way that they can relate to.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a great idea, Lindsay. Makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so number 1, I did my drum roll. Okay, I didn't do the fingers.
Oh, sorry.
There, okay, that's better.
Jeez.
This is a long one, so number 1, you see it's half this page,
It is
right?
a lot.
Right. So the number 1 thing to do when you're doing a proposal is follow the rules.
Follow the what?
The rules.
The rules? There's rules?
There's rules.
Okay.
Okay. Follow the rules that the potential client gives to you when they request the quote.
Like, what do you mean?
Okay, so remember we talked about RFP, request for proposal. Or let me give it to you in a simpler way to understand it. When I put out an ad to hire somebody, I put in the ad all the specific qualifications and what I need that person to, what they need to meet, the requirements they need to meet. And I say specifically in the ad, please respond and address each of these items. When I get an email back that doesn't have a resume attached or has a resume attached with all history for some other industry and no explanation of how that experience relates to this experience, or doesn't follow and address each of those sections I asked them to address, they didn't follow the rules.
Right.
And if they can't follow those simple rules, how are they going to be able to follow my policies and procedures to work in my company?
Good point.
Right?
Good point.
So when a potential client gives you specific instructions on how they want to see the proposal or how they want you to address it, make sure you follow those rules. I can't stress that enough, because if you don't, you take yourself out of the running instantly.
I was going to say, it feels like what you're talking about here, these are like 6 knockout factors.
Right.
I mean, and then there's many within each one. I mean, I love that. Things
Right.
knockout factors.
So what I typically do is when somebody asks me for a proposal, I look at all the instructions they've sent me or what the scope of work is that because just like I need to think down deeper into the details on assumptions, the person requesting the quote also is speaking at a high level and hasn't thought through everything they're asking for, right? Yeah. So I look through it and I say, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? So I create a list of questions before I ever put fingers to the keyboard about writing a proposal and send it back to try to get some additional clarification. If I can get the clarification I need, then I know what direction to take the proposal in. Also, you don't know who's going to be reading this proposal when you submit it. Now, remember, we're talking about the most formal kind of proposal. Most of the stuff that you do will probably be much easier than this and simple. But if you have an opportunity in your business to write something that's big, this is the way to go about it. And so, I lost my train of thought for a minute. So you want to show your attention to detail and that you don't know who's going to read it. That's where I was. You don't know who's going to read it, so you need to make sure you put a section in for sure about why choose my company, the name of your company, why choose Concierge Business Solutions. And then you write a paragraph about, that's the one place where you can write a paragraph about sort of your business resume and what sets you apart from other people. Not just that we're the best, but in my case, for Executive Errands, we have software that we utilize that provides full transparency for clients that they really like. Or we have written policies and procedures for everything we do. That sets us apart from other similar types of companies. So that section about why hire you has to be filled with what sets you apart from somebody else. Why should they choose company A over company B? Yeah. And you got to remember that most of the time on big proposals, it goes through several sets of hands, right? Before it gets to the decision maker, especially. Yeah. So you have to clear a bunch of hurdles, and you want to make sure that everybody who reads it knows why they want to use you. Yeah. Right? Really important.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of that. You covered that very, very well. I like that. Follow the rules. At first, I'm like, follow the rules. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it reminds me of of now where we were talking about putting an ad out there. We do a lot of, I'm going to call it electronic hiring, and so what we started doing is in the actual description of what we're looking for, I'll put a question in there. Please tell me the colors of the American flag. And I'm like you, if they don't answer that and they come back and it looks like it's obviously it's a stock. Hey, here's my answer. They're immediately knocked out because, like you said, they're not really following the rules. I never thought about it like that, but it's like, they think they're great, but they won't follow the
yeah. How can you hire somebody or work with somebody if they can't follow the simplest of instructions? Yeah. It's sort of a test. And I've been hiring people since the 80s. I've been in positions where I have hired and fired and written performance reviews and done all that kind of stuff. And so this is something I know very intimately, that when you want to evaluate whether somebody's a good fit for your company or how they are going to, what's the quality of the work they're going to do for you based on the proposal. You need to see that they follow the rules, right?
Yeah.
Because that's important. How can you work with them if you don't? And you also, part of the following the rules thing is don't skip, okay? Your intent may seem obvious to you, but it isn't to the person reading it. So you need to detail out every single little thing that you, like we're talking about the steps. You want to detail everything out. Better to have too much detail than not enough.
Yeah.
Right. Plus, if you detail out, we're gonna do. We just did a epoxy garage floor, for example. So we had to clean it, power wash it, and then etch it. Right, and then apply the epoxy and put the flakes in it, and then cover it with a clear coat that withstands tires, so you don't get tire marks. And so you list all these separate things so that the client then, when I say it's X amount of dollars, they go, "Wow, this is." And I tell them it's going to take 5 days, and we can't close the garage door, and the epoxy has to cure and all that stuff. You tell them all that, then they go, okay, then this price is really reasonable. Yeah. Right? So you want to be able to justify your costs, your price points, and show them enough detail to show you know what you're talking about.
I love that.
Right?
So give me a recap. We had 6. Let's go back through and get a recap. By the way, while she's about ready to do that, remember, this is available. Amy's got on the page here somewhere. You can download it. Yeah. It'll also be in the post. So one of the things she mentioned early on were about the forms, and I was going to say, you have forms on your website.
I do.
So you don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And so those are available as well. So,
yeah, I think the proposal template is out there. So like I said, I'll go check. I don't remember because it's been a while since I put those forms out there, but if it's not, certainly we can get it to you. And I encourage you to, I think more than anything I help people do, I help them with proposals because it's intimidating.
That's the business.
It's intimidating and wordsmithing properly. A lot of people can't write or are intimidated to write. For some people, public speaking is easier than writing. So if you need help, call somebody who can help you. Call me, call somebody else who can help you. So let's recap. Okay. So again, working backwards is to use the correct format based on the kind of proposal you're doing. Again, it's not based on cost, right? It's more based on what's the risk involved with the project. That will dictate.
Higher risk, more
formal.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
The lower the risk, the easier it is to do. We just installed a makeup mirror. It's a hardwired light-up makeup mirror, and so that was an email proposal. It's going to cost X amount of dollars, and she said, "Fine, do it."
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
But when you're doing something where there's all this, what's the word I'm looking for? Unknown. So many unknown factors. You need to write a more formal proposal so you're protected.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So use the correct format. Then create a template for your use so that you have something to remind you. I have a form also out on the website. This one I know is there for sure because it's a form I use every day. I call it my services form, but basically what it is when my phone rings, I pick up this form and it makes sure that I remember to get name, address, phone number, email, if I'm taking a credit card, all the credit card information, because I had found before I couldn't, you just don't remember it all.
Yeah.
Right? And so then it's embarrassing to call somebody back and say, oh, by the way, could you give me your email address so I can send you a receipt? Exactly. So by having a form, then it prompts you what you need. And that's the same as this. If you have a template for a proposal, then you will remember all the sections, especially if you don't write them that often.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? Yeah. 4 is write from the client's perspective. The most difficult part of writing proposals, bar none, it's not number 1 because number 1 is follow the rules, but it is a difficult challenge for some people to rephrase so it comes from the client's perspective.
And it's so important because if not, I think it would come across as like, hey, I'm just beating my chest how great I am.
Right.
And that's a turnoff. It's almost like you go to a mixer or whatever and Leslie comes up and all she does is tell me how great she is. I'm like,
and I am.
She is great, but it'd be different, right? So, yeah, speak from the client's perspective.
I was just kidding. Okay. Watch your spelling and your grammar, right? Look at there, and there, because those homonyms are a challenge for people, so watch those. 2, 2, and 2 also.
There's a bunch of them out there.
There's a bunch of them. My English is a weird language. Okay. Know who your audience is. Do some research. Make sure you understand what that person wants. You know, if you typically swear a lot in your business or your personal life, maybe the person that you're proposing to is somebody's very much high moral ground and does not like swearing. So you've got to be sure of who you're talking to, right? And then finally follow the rules. And that means the rules the client has laid out for this particular type of proposal.
And take take the time and read the details of that request so that you make sure that you're accepted. You're not kicked out before you even accepted because the first line you didn't do what they asked you to do.
That above all else to me is the most important thing, is to address everything they ask for, even over address it, because that shows your attention to detail, and they will kick you out right off the get-go. It depends, again, depending on industry, but you can get kicked out on a proposal if you simply don't address one of the requirements.
Now, once again, this can be a challenging piece of your business.
Right.
Leslie, if somebody needed help on this, I know you do mentoring and consulting. Can they reach out to you?
Yes.
How do they get a hold of you?
Okay, so you can go through my website at conciergebusinesssolutions.com. I think Amy's got it up on the screen. And there's a contact us page, so you can email me through there. You can call me. My phone number is everywhere. It's also on the screen. And you can also message me through Facebook or a comment. I hope you'll share this video if you know somebody who struggles with proposals or is intimidated by them. They really aren't that hard. Once you get in the hang of doing them, they become easier and easier to do, but in the beginning they can be a little intimidating. So share this with somebody who you know writes proposals and could use some help. And then all of our videos, all of these Facebook Live videos are on our YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, under Leslie Spoor. If you search that on YouTube, they'll all come up. There's a bunch. And if you want to laugh, there's a video of me dancing out there as well. So, you know.
I thought it wasn't that funny.
It was a charity thing.
It was, okay, it was kind of funny.
It's kind of funny.
All right. Okay, any other last thoughts before we let everybody go today?
I think that's it.
Cool. I thought that was great.
I do want to say one thing is that Jeff and Amy, that Swing Point Media, they do videos and advertising and social media support and what did I forget? All kinds of, they do, what are those things that hover in the air?
Oh, we do drones.
They do drone videos.
Drones
it's amazing all the stuff they do. So, and it doesn't matter if you're local or you're far away. If you need a video source, and they didn't know I was going to do this today.
I didn't.
So if you need a video source, either contact me to get to them, or they're usually tagged on most of my stuff at Swing Point Media. But they're amazing, both of these two.
Thank you.
So I would encourage you to use them if at all possible.
Thank you, Les. I appreciate that.
Yeah, surprise.
Geez, now that my face is probably red and I'm perspiring because I wasn't expecting it, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so starting in September now, we will be, nothing changes. 3 o'clock right here, Facebook, and then also on YouTube, you'll be able to follow up on there.
Yeah.
You know, all your YouTube channels, there's 26 on there right now.
This is 27.
This is
well,
number
actually,
20.
there's 33 out there right now because I've got some personal ones out there too.
Okay.
So some fun stuff.
But there's a library of Live with Leslie out there.
Yeah.
So it's on topics that, you know, Leslie that's in the trenches every day has decided, hey, these are topics that are common, so she's created videos that will solve those problems. So gosh, go back there and look. It's almost like she's a mini YouTube. I was just reading that said 47% of people who are making a buy-in decision watch between 1 and 3 YouTube videos.
Sure.
And then after that they make a decision. So go to YouTube, but go specifically to Leslie Spoor. Check that out. You'll be surprised how many pieces of content you have to say, oh my gosh, I'm on the happy path. And if you don't know what the happy path is, go watch the last one because I'm sure we talked about it.
Yeah.
Leslie, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us. My name is Jeff Harrison.
I'm Leslie Spoor.
Live with Leslie every Wednesday at 3 o'clock.